What's up, everybody? I'm back with another episode of the Keep Going podcast. Today is a special episode. I got to sit down with my Uncle Ronnie and cousin Josh and talk what it was like for Ronnie to grow up in Lawton back in the day with my grandfather, their brothers, good times, bad times, funny times, and just amazing stories. Ronnie and his family have meant so much to me as I've grown up, and before my grandfather died, he told me that he wanted me to get closer to all of my cousins and my uncles and my family members. It's been almost 2 years since he left us, and in that time, I have become so much closer to those people he spoke of. I know he's looking down on me with a smile on his face. I'm glad I get to share time with family and get to hear all these beautiful stories. Ronnie, Josh, I love you all. Thank you for your time. I hope you all enjoy this episode. As always, keep going.
I'm just thinking of that story because I think that was one of Jerry's best friends.
Franco or Franklin? Frankie.
Well, Frankie Dunbar was Jackie's.
Okay.
And
then who was Jerry's friend?
And Jerry was the one, and Ronnie Miller, and he was a little redhead that played on the basketball team. And for whatever reason, him and Jerry didn't get along at the start when they switched over their senior year at St. Mary's. And Ronnie was tougher. Yeah, he had to be to fight with Jerry. But anyway, they ended up, and that's one of the times that when Ronnie passed away, that Jerry and Jackie and I were at the funeral, that I saw, how much he loved him.
Mm-hmm. And Jerry, even though I didn't spend a ton of time with everyone, I mean, I've spent more time with you all and then Papa more than anyone. And when I would be with Jerry, though, he was just always so loving, even though he was pretty stern. He was super stern. He was always good to me.
Yeah, he was always good to me too. But I'll tell you what, there was this tension. I was like, oh, I'm kind of scared of this. He's a big, mean Indian guy. I'm like,
real stone cold face. Yeah. Because Buddy, you don't really see as often, and he's kind of smiley.
Yeah.
And then Tommy, he's just reckless. But Jerry was stern. So you'd be a little nervous. I remember when Papa took me to Lawton to go to the Indian hospital when Jerry was sick. And he was like, hey, don't feel bad if Jerry doesn't remember you or he's just doing really bad. And I walked in and he said, Zachary. And then just started talking about basketball because that's all we talked about. Yeah. And then we left and Papa was like, that's really good that you all had that moment. But it's like, you never know. It could have been one of those days where he's just like, I don't know who anyone is. But he's like, oh. But I hear stories from Papa and he'll say, Jerry could have went and played professional sports, but he wanted to break horses. So he went and did
Very true. Yeah. They would be on, and I call it Jackie's ice route because, he made it happen and Jerry would go with him sometimes. And the next thing you know, somebody would swing by on their route and goes, we got a ball game. We need you. And he'd just quit and just wander off. And so.
I left Jackie there to do
it. Jackie. Well, of course, Jackie was going to do the work. That's just how he was, And so Jerry just wandered off and go play ball.
He told me that. Not that exact story, but so many times he'd be like, we'd be doing something. And they'd be like, hey, we need somebody. And they just.
Softball, basketball, whatever. And the owner would come by. He said, where's Jerry? Oh, he's out playing. I fired him. He ain't never coming back. You just tell him that. Next day, he'd be back. And the same thing happened over and over.
There's something cool about people that just live. Because
absolutely,
sometimes I fall victim to not pushing the boundary with that. Mm-hmm. And it's always admirable to see the people that just did it.
And that's just how he was, But like you said, he was just as loving as anybody in the world. But,
I remember Tommy would, he was just so ornery. So we would be doing stuff and he'd be shaking his ice glass to have the lady come refill it. But then he would say something sweet to her. So it's it was always this balance. Or he'd be like, I haven't seen you in a while. Punch me in my stomach as hard as you can. And I'm like, okay. So I'm like 8 years old and I'm just like trying to punch him and he's breaking my hand. Or I got really lucky that for some reason my dad dropped me off at Tommy's and I stayed there for a week randomly. Just in the summer, I was a kid. Grandma Clara was there. And we went to Lawton, did a bunch of errands. She bought me a stuffed animal, like all these good memories. And then I remember Tommy being so ornery, even with her, like picking on her and stuff. But about 2 weeks later is when she passed. So and when I think back, I'm like, how lucky to like get this random moment. Because I never stayed at Tommy's before. But I was there for like 5 nights. And just me, Clara.
That would have been an experience right there, staying with him.
Yeah, just living through 5 days of that.
I was just 9 or 10 years old, or how I think I have her. What is that called?
Diary? Or
no, what is that when you get it from the funeral? I got that thing. I think it was 2003. So I would have only been about 11. I think she died in 2003. But
yeah, that was tough. That was tough. She was a wonderful lady.
Yeah, I didn't get to know her as well, obviously being so young, but when I see the younger pictures of her and just how, one, beautiful, but just how smiling and happy she is. And then it was crazy. When Papa was getting close to the end, he said, I just want to go see my mama. And he would say that all the time. And I just was like, I think that's one of the biggest things that made me feel okay. Is I was just like,
he was ready.
I was like, at least he's going. Because we have these like moments of respect for people, like, and they're stuck in time, if that makes sense. Like we have Baby Jack. And anytime he talked about Grandma Clara, it was Mama or Tutu. And it's just like, we've got these personalities that are just like etched in time. So we're really lucky. So thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for having us. Yeah. They go back to when Jackie had that wreck with that Clara. And I ran up there to the hospital at Southwestern. And he says, how's Mama doing? I said, she's fine. She's fine. Oh, this and that. And I said, she's fine. And that's where that scar that you see on his nose, that's where he got that scar.
Was it a car wreck?
Was in the car wreck with Aunt Clara. So many.
What was it like to see him not panicking, but uneasy? I never saw him nervous.
No. But he was worried about his mama, you know. And they were so close.
They were a spitting image of each other.
Yeah.
That's exactly alike.
Yeah, they were. They were just close. But she never said any bad thing about anybody that I ever remember, you know, because I'd go by and see them a lot. And she was just, well, even when she was out at the Fort Linden School, you know, we'd go out there and see them. So a lot of good memories.
For the listeners, Cousin Josh, Uncle Ronnie, family podcast, the best. These really are like the best ones for me. I love interviewing people because I get to meet new folks and it's always interesting. Just like when I told you I had that guy that's a professional shooter, Mitch Gibson, on, and he custom makes these guns and I got to nerd out with him.
Question about Mitch Gibson.
Yeah.
Like, I think I know him. I haven't
he was in the medical field.
He's in the medical field.
He was
in the medical field, and I believe he was our director of biomed. So I know him.
Yeah.
So I know him very well.
Yeah, he said he was in the medical field for a long time and then he switched and does the guns now.
Okay. Yeah.
I'll connect you.
Yeah.
But yeah, he builds competition style guns. So like hot rods of pistols. But anyways, but like what I was saying is that's crazy that you know him. It's always good to meet new folks, but having Harvey on and having you all on and having my dad on and getting to have family along the way is so cool. Like, one, I get to learn more about my past and where I come from. But I get to learn more about you all too. So it's a blessing, and you all coming by and getting to sit in here is special to me because just like when we go have a lunch at Papa and Tutu's and we love it there, like this is kind of my shrine. You were looking over at Papa over there and there's a bottle of wine that was named after Tommy, and there's my Hawaiian name that Tutu gave me, which this will make you laugh. About 2 years ago, I was like, Papa, why didn't I get a Comanche name? And he said, because I didn't give you one. He said, your Tutu gave you a name. And that was it. And I was just like, oh. Anyways, like the Thunder, how are they doing? Like, just go back to
how about them Thunder?
It was just, and he wasn't being mean. It's just, you know how he is just direct. And I think that's where I get it from. But it was funny because I don't know why. is just, I'd expect
Oh, I
him to
see
say
a lot
something else.
of your papa in you.
Well,
with
thank you.
Just being around your house and seeing, as you call it, your
Yeah, it's the
shrine.
first time being
You
here.
know, yeah. As you call it, your shrine. And it kind of reminded me of their house when I walked in. With your own style, of course. But it kind of reminded me like,
Yeah, I love that.
he is kind of like
Did
his
it feel
papa.
comfortable for you
Oh,
coming to a new place?
You bet. Yeah.
I love that because
Yeah.
that's, I don't know. I was talking to Rachel about it. I was like, it's crazy that we knew how to make a home. So it's really nice to have these type of moments where I can share it with family because I never thought of this, you know?
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. But when we walked in, what did you say? Feel free to walk around the house.
Yeah. Make yourself at home. Feel
Yeah.
free.
And you just go and look at what, and you go, wow. Not, everybody, well, I don't want them in this room, or I hadn't cleaned this room, or whatever. Just go see what I've got.
Yeah, if you would have went too deep, I would have stopped you.
Right. Hey, no.
Not back there. No. Something funny is I just always get things from Tutu or Papa or Dad or at random times.
Mm-hmm.
So last time we were having lunch there, she gave me a bag of stuff. I got to work on my terminology because weird, funny stuff. It sounds like I'm being rude. She gave me items, and one of the items was, is it called a draw cloth or it's some type of cloth? You would know. I'll show you when we're done. And it's a native cloth that Papa used to hang by his bed at the Indian school. Now it's by my bed, but it's like he kept that. And Rachel and I's colors are red and teal. That's what we like to show as our combination. Yeah. And it's red and teal. And I'm like, I would tell him, Papa, I'd be like, man, that's so weird how that works out. And he's like, quit saying weird.
Quit saying weird.
Or quit saying odd. Or quit saying.
The stars aligned.
So it's.
Yeah.
But I would like to learn about, I know you've told me countless stories, but just growing up in Lawton and just take me wherever you want to go.
Yeah.
You can start wherever you want to start.
Yeah, there's a few things that they talked about living on Doolittle Street. And this is more Jackie and Jerry, that Doolittle is just a little bitty old street there in Lawton. And they had a little house, and mostly they cooked outside. And there was a field out in the back. And the man that owned the field would come up and say, Clara, I don't mind your boys borrowing my ponies, but have them bring them back. They'd just get on them and ride them into town. Sometimes they'd bring them back, sometimes they didn't. So, that was just what they did. And as you know, Jerry, if he had been a little bit older, he would have stood. They didn't care. They just didn't bother. Or when Jackie would tell me that the five of them would go, here's $1, and they would go to the store. And each one would buy something for their supper. Can you imagine? And then they would take it home. One would get this, one would get this, one would get this. And you're thinking, little kids, knowing, that they had to help each other out and love doing it.
Yeah, he would tell me about that small house they grew up in and cooking outside. He said we'd cook under the weeping willow style tree. And we'd always just cook outside, and it was 500 square feet. We were all in there, and that's why they had to go to the boarding school in the first place. Is just necessity, I'm guessing. He always said it was sad, or it was hard on Clara for her to send him, and she'd be like, "I'm sorry, Jackie," but he was so, I don't know. I only got to know him from 50 plus. Yeah. So I get this refined version where if when you're in your teens, 20s, 30s, you're learning so much. Yeah. So I got him more together. But when he tells me stories, it's admirable how he was. They're like, yeah, he's 6 years old and he just lived with those nuns and just him all summer. And he was in this big old building, and he would have the only light. And then he'd have to turn it off and walk all the way down the hallway in the night. And then he'd have to get up early and do his chores. And
right.
I always told him, you had it so much harder. You just had so many responsibilities. And I'm sure it's similar to you, just growing up in that time. It's just different where we have our own challenges, Josh and I, but it's a different, ours is more mental almost.
It is very more mental in this day and age versus I feel how like it was back then. You know, I don't think even neither one of us knew that we had to go out and provide our own dinner for the night or something like that. It was more so just mental, like how can we better our family on down the road? You know what I mean?
Yeah, we had the luxury, or we have the luxury to think of like progress instead of just like survival.
Exactly.
And I know that when you all were young, especially growing up in Lawton, you've told me that it wasn't the best place at that time with the crowds. You had to navigate a whole different environment.
Yeah, it was pretty rough.
So if you're growing up, what years are those when you're like ice route, all that? How old are you?
Oh, let's see. I was born in 48, and then when he came back, he wasn't even 16 at the time. So I was probably about 12, you know.
Because was there 4 years difference between you and Jackie?
4 years difference. Yeah, about 4 years. But it was, you know, I lost my dad when I was 7, so we had the moving business, so I was down there. But with him and the boys, talking about Clara's 4 boys, there was nothing that Uncle Gene didn't do for them boys. You know, he was, and Jackie will tell, I think he probably told you this story. They wanted to go to the show, so, you know, he said, well, take my car and and I call him Sonny, so we'll say Tommy. And so they drove to the show, went in, come back out. Tommy couldn't find the keys. So they called Uncle Gene, and he said, don't worry about it. Just catch a cab. Tell them to come down to Davis and Sons Merchants, and I'll pay them tomorrow, and I'll get somebody to come get the car. You know, things like that. Or they come out to Fort Sill Linden School and say, you know, I'm taking the boys to circus or something. But, you know, they thought very, very highly of him. But he was a kid from the time he was born till the day he died in that car wreck. I mean, fun and games all the time.
You can remember that even only getting 7 years?
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, people go, you can't remember all that. I said, oh, I can. I said, because it was fun ever waking out.
Wow.
You know, we were in Kansas, and and he was driving in the pickup, and I was sitting in his laps driving. He always let me drive. And the door swung open, and I just grabbed the door. And we're going down the road, down the highway. He just grabs it. We just keep on going down the road. And then Uncle Merle came over to see us, and I just got in his truck, popped it, went through the garage door, right out the back, and into the backyard. And they thought that was the funniest thing. You know, you're tearing up a house. But that's just how he was. You know, where he would go, he'd pick me up, and he'd put me on the saddle on the back of his truck, pickup. And instead of going to work, we'd go to the saddle bar. And he'd come in there and he'd have a beer, and I'd sit there in the saddle.
Sure.
and
I remember the stories you would say about him getting Grandma a new car, and then he would take the back seat out before he'd get the car home to her, put a Shetland pony in there for the kids.
Yeah, bring us a whore, a Shetland pony, and he'd just drive right down. And he had the trucks, but he wanted to get a new car. So if he'd go get a new car, take the back seat out of it, and go down the road, and you'd see a head sticking out this way and the tail out this way. So, you know, if there's no telling how I'd have turned out.
Oh.
You know, but I had to take responsibilities at such a young age, but I still remembered all the things. Well, him and Uncle Emmett, they took their horses into a bar one time down on C Street. I mean, they were just.
Yeah, he was great. Even what Curtis told me one time, when Curtis was a favorite, you know, our great grandma's favorite. And so anything that my grandpa wanted to do, oh, Curtis is coming with me, you know, whatever. So I guess he was courting my grandma at the time, and he'd just hop on a horse, and he went to the bar. He told our great grandma that he was just going to take Curtis down. I don't know where it was, to the circus or to the barber shop or something like that. And sure enough, it was right to the bar. And then he put my grandma on a horse and left Curtis to walk home.
How old's Curtis? A kid at the time?
Yeah, Curtis is like 15, 16 years older than me.
Because to put in perspective, Tommy was only 10 years younger than his dad, my grandpa. So everyone's pretty close in age.
Because Curtis is in his 90s now, right?
Yeah, he just turned 93 or 94 on the 1st of April.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah. And Grandpa would have been...
He was born in 27.
27.
So he'd have been 99 this year.
That's crazy to hear. You've probably seen so much change, even though 48 to you may seem not as far back with them being in the 20s, but that is a lot that you've seen. So when you got those responsibilities, what was going on? Like now you have to work as a 7-year-old?
Yeah, kind of like Jackie. Jackie at 5'4", when he went, and he just, and that's the type person he was, and that's what he turned out to be, Yeah. He had responsibilities back at that time, and when you said something about him staying there by himself, he could have left, but he needed to milk the cows and do this and do that, and he just thought the world, Father Gerard, that he talked a lot about, and those things. And Napua, when we were talking and looking at pictures the other day, she said that when they would go to St. Gregory, said that'd be one of the places he would go to the grave.
So he's still at St. Greg's?
Yeah, he's buried there.
Wow.
So,
And see, that's something I didn't know. I went to a tryout there before.
Huh.
Didn't even know that. So I was right there.
Yeah.
It's like all these times that you cross like a path that, like, I'm sure you do it and you're like, dang, my dad did this.
Yeah.
It's like
exactly
so interesting.
And you go, my gosh. But, one of the stories, if it hadn't been from Jackie, I would have questioned it. But when he had that real bad operation years ago, he's prostrate. And they called me and I went running up there again. And not that, that I wanted to be there for him, because he came to when I had my operations. If he could, he'd be there just like I would be there for him. And, they had to take him back to surgery. And he said, I told him, he said, just take me. He said, I can't take any more of this pain. Mm-hmm. And he said, I saw your dad. I saw my dad. I said, really? He said, so he died. He was up in heaven with us. And Jackie told me that story.
He never told me that. That's amazing.
And I wrote that down, and anybody else would have said that, but he told me exactly what he saw. He said, I wasn't here anymore. He said, I was up there. And I went, whoa. And you might, but, he suffered a long time, then 20-some years between that.
Yeah, it's like early 2000s to 2 years ago.
It was Jennifer, right before Jennifer's wedding.
Yeah. Yeah, we got that.
Because you got to get you and Mom and Napua and Jackie got to get that good picture together. My cousin's wedding.
And that was 202.
Yeah, 202.
Yeah, and we sat there and as usual, we just sat and visited like we, and that's kind of the way it was with me and him, or him and me and JB. We could not see each other for a long time, and then it wasn't just like we'd seen each other every day.
What was it like when you all would hang out as so much older, but knowing like the foundation? Do you just see that all the time? Like when you all see each other, do you just see the young version always, or?
Well, sometimes. I mean, we still know what we went through, and then what we've developed into, and you think, man, those were good times, but they were hard, but we didn't think they were, because that's just how we grew up. Going to the creek to swim. People didn't, we went to swimming pools. No, we went to creeks or lakes or whatever. And the uncles would, back then, they would get sirloins and just throw them on a grill and cook them. And we'd be out there playing and splashing and stuff.
That'd be by the Wichitas a lot, right?
Yeah, we did. It was more than when people say we go to Mount Scott. And I said, well, we used to go to Mount Scott, but we would cook out there at the bottom across the street.
Yeah.
And skunks would invade. And my dad, hell, that didn't bother him. Nothing bothered my dad. Nothing.
That's so interesting.
If
It's like a life lesson.
If it did,
yeah.
I never knew it.
Mm.
And, and then when he would take off somewhere, well, he'd end up over at 10th and Monroe in that little wash house and be a new car or new something parked out front. And Mom would load up the three of us and we'd go find him. And he'd be passed out in that bed. And she'd just straddle him, just beating the fire out of him. And he had a big old nose and it'd just be bleeding. And he'd just be laughing and just go, it didn't bother him. And so then the more he laughed, the more it made her madder. So then she would jump up and started tearing up his new suit because he'd always buy new suits from Arzacs. And then even in the moving business, he'd have a white shirt, tie, and then he'd take that off when he would do some work. But I mean, that's just how he was. I mean, he just and Uncle Collie, he said, he was the toughest little kid you ever saw. He said he didn't like fighting, but you couldn't hurt him. He said that big old nose would start bleeding and he'd just laugh and just kept on and you're going, but that's just how he was. He hitchhiked ended up out in California. And he called the office and said, Pop, I need to send some money. He said, how'd you get out there? Hitchhiking? He said, well, then you need to hitchhike back. And he come on back.
Wow.
Or he bought a new pickup. And back, I guess it was about 2nd D or somewhere there by the railroad track. And he called the office and he said, I'm in Quanah, Texas, which, that rings a bell. And he said, I bought a new pickup last night, but he said, I hopped a train. Could you go by and pick that up? But see, things like that, he did all the time. All the time.
Wow. I bet it was a roller coaster for the family members. Not as much you because you're so young, but his cousins and brothers and mom and aunts, they're probably stressed out.
See, I think from the stories I've heard, I think him and Emmett were the most alike out of the brothers. Mm. So just crazy and just as fun,
And when we were coming back, when we crossed the Brazos, I told John, I said, that's where your grandpa and Uncle Merle it was a joint there. And it didn't look like it was anymore. But anyway, when they were running the road, they would.
Yeah, we were coming back from San Antonio, driving back up north on 281.
Mm-hmm.
And it used to be old. Was it a bar or something like that?
Honky-tonk type deal over
where
by
they
the
pull
Brazos.
over when they were running the road.
What is running the road?
When they're hauling furniture.
Oh, okay, okay.
Go
business.
Go back and tell them, because the moving business was, I guess it was my great-grandfathers, his 2 great-grandfathers that started it, right? So that is deep in our family.
The Davis and Co.
Yeah.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Davis Moving.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, at first they called it Merchants, and then Davis and Sons. But
tell me about it. I've never learned about it. I didn't even know you all had the moving business till you told me 2 years ago, hey, we're going to sell this property. I'm like, I don't know anything.
Yeah.
So please.
Well, they started it back in the 40s, and there was 6 boys. All of them went to the Navy. 4 of them fought in World War II. And they all grew up in the moving business. And like Uncle Curtis would tell you, he would go to school and then they would take him and then he'd go work in the moving business. Well, Uncle Merle and Pop, Genie Boy as they called him, when they'd get finished, it could be midnight, it could be whatever, and they'd have a company truck. Well, Pop and Uncle Merle would have a few ladies with them, and they'd end up out in the field somewhere. Well, Pop, meaning Grandpa, he'd go find them. And he'd say, boys, we got a lot of work to get done today. He said, I really need you down at the warehouse to unload. And you girls, appreciated you'd come and help too, and said, I'll feed you. and them girls would just feel obligated, and off they'd go, But I never saw him ever work Grandpa, but he worked them boys. And
it takes a lot to lead.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, a lot to lead.
Got to facilitate that,
Yeah, that's a lot of mental.
But he had, and Uncle Merle and Gene run the road. And of course, that's where Jackie got to run the road with Uncle Merle. I ran the road with Uncle Merle, and then that in turn, Uncle Merle would talk about Gene, and tell me the stories about what they were doing when they grew up. And because I only had him for 7 years, but they were.
So later on, you got to learn more, kind of like I'm doing.
Yeah. And so some of the different places that, that they would go. But anyway, they had, those 6 little Linden boys, and they moved pianos. I mean, anything and everything. They did telephone companies to telephone poles.
Dang.
They unloaded flour and sugar and anything that could be done by these boys, they were done.
And those boys are Gene, Merle that you're talking about.
Yeah.
So you're elders.
Yeah, because of course there's Emmett, then Uncle Jack, John Ed, Pop, Collie, and Curtis. And they all were in the moving business. Some of them didn't like it. John Ed got in the Navy, never come back.
My dad tells me a story about Uncle Jack because I didn't meet him. But he says, we'd be driving, I think, near Lawton because they would be bird hunting.
Mm-hmm.
And he'd just be driving down the road and he'd be like, oh, and pull over into a ditch and be like, get him. And then they'd just boo, boo, boo. And he'd be like, all right. And then drive off to another ditch and then pull over. And I think the first time they did it was Uncle Jack and Papa and my dad and I think Scott is
Allen.
Yeah, like Jim's son.
Yeah, Scott Allen.
And they were like, be ready to shoot. And they pulled over to some ditch and my dad just didn't shoot because everyone went, doo, 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 doo. And he was like froze. And they're like, you got to be ready. And they also talked about Scott not giving the quail any time to take off. So he just shoot them right in front of him and they just disintegrate. And he's like, you got to give them some space. So to hear stories of them even before that, because that's what you're seeing is them. I have a knife in my safe where it's a long old knife coming from the cattle side, and on the sheath it says made by Uncle Merle in
That's awful.
19 something, 40 something. And I believe that's from Merle.
The silver?
Yeah, the silver with the feather he made. He made it for me with some horsehair.
His too with the turquoise?
No, so that's Papa's. I just got that given to me by Tutu.
Oh, well, that's great.
So I got another blessing. But that orange one, I interviewed a guy named Mark Wilson, who's a Comanche Little Pony. He's actually going to help me enter the arena on Mother's Day for the first time. So
Wow.
very, very nerve-wracking. But he gave me that after we did the podcast. It's so funny. He gave me that, and then my artist friend Zonley gave me that buffalo painting. The red is a buffalo herd after we did the pod. So people just kind of bless me with stuff. And it's nice. But no, Merle gave me that, and then I have that knife, and it's just funny, the items, because these moments and items is all I have as far as from you all. Mm-hmm. So the stories from you, or I have a knife from Bart, who, worked with Papa forever. And
they were very close.
All that stuff means a lot. So even just hearing the stories is kind of crazy to me to hear, what was it like being a bunch of native boys growing up in Lawton in the 40s or 50s, I guess, is when you were doing it.
Yeah. Well,
was it hard? Is it segregated? Is it just an Indian town? What is it?
Well, see, I never saw any of that. I didn't think. Oh, excuse me. And
you're like, am I wired up?
Yeah. My best friend, his grandmother was from New York. And of course, I just lost Pop. And so we moved back over to the other house that we owned. And I'm third grade. And over there playing with Keith. And the reason I'm telling this is his grandmother was from New York. And she looked and she said, Margaret, which is Keith's mother, what are you letting Keith play with this dirty little Linden boy for?
Referring to you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because Keith and his family were white.
And I'm looking
From New
around.
York.
You're like, who's she talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how I did. I mean, I looked around and I said, who is she talking about? I mean, Keith's mom and dad treated me like their son. And that's how they introduced me when I got in trouble. Because he was a lawyer and he said, you treat him as my third son. So some of the things I did, I didn't have to worry. I mean, it was just that way. I mean, he was very well known. And when you're Charles W. Jennings' third son, you can't do no wrong.
What did they say when she said that?
Keith just took a hammer and busted the glass deal, and we just went on playing. I mean, because we're just...
That's the way to say she needs to shut the hell up.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, he just broke it, and we just kept on playing. And just went on, and and to this day, well, when his dad was very sick, I'm the one that went and sat with him early in the mornings until I had to go to work. I'd go in about 3 or 4 and sit with him, and then go to work at 6. But he was just like my dad, and he treated me as such.
Especially with you having to transition at such a young age without a father.
And he also was, for a better word, he was the lawyers for the Native Americans. And we saved a lot of his pictures, paintings that were given to him by different Native people to give to Mackenzie, which is Keith's daughter. So we got her some of that because Keith, well, I'm not going to say any of that. But anyway, he got
You can
rid
say
of
it and he can edit it out.
Yeah, he got.
Well, I need to make him some notes then.
But anyway,
we'll get back to it.
Yeah.
But in the future, let me know. Because
that's kind of how we entered it. And so when I was playing ball and stuff, I'd go down to the Boys and Girls Club. Because that's where the players were at, and I was fortunate enough that I could go buy tennis shoes once a week because I had, go down there and play with the best players. And, and that's another thing about Jackie and Jerry, and they probably told you this more than once. Mom had called and said, he's out drinking again. I need for you boys to go find him. Said, he ain't out drinking. I can promise you that.
And they're talking about you?
Yeah. Said, he's out hustling basketball game. I will know. And they go find me, and that's where I'd be hustling basketball.
How would you hustle basketball? You betting on the games?
Yeah, I'd go play. And I'm a little bitty guy.
Yep, I can relate.
And I would just study them study them. And I would be on them like a glove. I could play defense you would not believe. And I would just study him, and I'd catch him going up in the air, and I'd block him with my left hand. And then when he gets to talk to my cousin Mickey, because Mickey had always round up some games against the one guy he was all-state basketball, younger than me, 6 foot tall. His dad was a principal. Mother was one of my teachers in college. And I said, Mickey said, get him. I said, oh, I'll show him. So we got up there, and I went up, and we were at the gym, and I went up, and I brushed that shot, and when I came down, one foot hit the bleachers, another, bam! And he goes, my God, who is it? Because I could get to the rim, and I was I only weighed 120 pounds. But, stuff like that, that I pride, but that's where they would find me.
Why do you think basketball is so big in our family?
I don't know.
Because it's so, that's all any of you all talk about. And that's all I did. So what do you think it is? Do you have any idea?
You know, because Pop, I don't remember any of the uncles playing ball. If they did, I never heard about it. Curtis, wouldn't even go to a game.
I say Curtis and me are probably the same. I mean, I enjoy it, but I don't have no athletic ability to save my life.
But he loves golf, and I hate golf.
Golf's hard.
Yeah, and it looks like that's the easiest sport.
It is not the easiest
Just
sport.
lift that thing's just sitting there waiting on you. How can you mess it up? Oh,
Yeah, well, don't come with me.
You can miss it. Trust me, and it's going to go anyway.
But, you know, I think that was kind of course, the boys, you know, they grew up where they did, you know, in boarding schools. And like you were saying earlier, you know, they didn't have enough jerseys, pants, shoes, you know.
Sometimes they wouldn't even have a coach. They would just coach themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and they had to go down the street to play, you know, all the different things that they told about. But it was just something, for whatever reason. You know, I loved football. I played a lot of softball, ran track. You know, when I was 6th grade, they said, you need to come out for track. And I was playing basketball. And I said, you know. And a kid that was full grown at 6 years old, you know, I lined up against him. His name was Rick Baldridge. He ended up being co-offensive back of the year in '60 with Steve Owens.
Oh,
And the guy behind me said, look at this little fella. Why, he going to finish last if he can even run that far. And the kid behind him goes, watch him run. And he was the head football coach's son at Cameron. McDonald, he ended up playing for Kansas State. Anyway, Rick Baldridge beat me by 0.2 of a second. And you look at my stride, toot, and his was,
yeah.
you know, and then they went, go over there and broad jump. I said, I've never broad jumped before. And my first one, I went 14-1 as a 6th grader.
And that's when you run and jump in the sand.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And so I thought, man, this pretty easy. And then John Henderson come up and he jumped 14-3. But, you know, that was stuff like that. But basketball, for whatever reason, just seemed like that's what we all did.
Besides defense, what are other things that, like, was your thing to do when you were playing basketball?
Oh, I could shoot. Well, I got a trophy, free throw shooting, 24 out of 25, when I was in junior high.
You played before the 3-point line. So you were shooting from wherever.
Yeah. That was a long time ago. And then my cousin, Mickey, he'd come get me, and he said, let's go down to the First Baptist Church. And we get down there playing, and those kids would go, boy, you ought to go out for basketball. You're awful good. And I said, you know how old I am? I'm going to Cameron, and you guys are in Lawton High. Oh, my.
Because you were just so small?
Yeah, I just, but, I could jump, but I could shoot, and I didn't go between my legs, behind my back, I'd come up and do that or something, like that, but none of that other stuff,
Do you teach yourself how to shoot?
Well, this goes back to before Pop got killed, and it was over on Taft Street, and the two kids living with their aunt and uncle, one ended up, his name was Johnny Bateman, and then his little brother was Tommy. And Johnny Bateman ended up making the majors in baseball.
Mm.
And then he played for this softball team where there's 4 guys, and he played on that. But anyway, going back, Tommy said, you, and so he started showing me how to shoot. And then when Pop died, we moved back to Kenyon, and Jim Price down the street that ended up starting. He was very good, and he wrote in my book, you should have played, you would have started, and I was working, but still hustling. Anytime I could, wasn't on the job, I could be out. I was out pick up games or hustling on whatever,
Mm-hmm.
But
What was some stuff that my papa would do playing ball? What was something you would think? Because he would never tell me like, oh, I shot really good. You know, like what's something that he did when you were like, if you were going right now, back in the day, you and him to go play ball, what would he be doing? You played defense and shot. What is he doing?
yeah, well, when I watched him, especially when they came back to St. Mary's, Jerry by far
It's the best.
was the best. Not that Jackie wasn't, but Jackie was just what you call, he had it. He had all the basketball,
IQ.
IQ,
Yeah, the knowledge.
and he would play within, because we're all 5 foot something.
Play within his game.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and and he's told me about you. He said I used to go watch Zach play all that. Quit fouling. I said, and I know you you didn't let it slip. You told me, you said you wanted to let them know how you played right off the bat.
Right.
And I mean, that's how you're supposed to. When you're that small, you get in there and you let them know that this is not going to be easy. If you want it, we're going to play rough.
I probably fouled out more games than most players, but I like that. But he would say that. He'd be like, "Why are you fouling?" I'm like, I really don't think some are a foul. Like some I know I'm fouling.
When you
some,
knock them down and roll them
some I'm not fouling. I'm just they're running into me. But so Jerry was the one that like would be scoring, I guess.
Yeah, anything, but he was rough too. I mean,
I heard it.
Yeah. He could clean your plow in a New York minute. I mean, that's just how he was. But he was Jackie was great. I mean, he just wouldn't talk about it. But when there's only 5 of you and 5'6" is the tallest, and I think, actually, Buddy, and he claimed, this is Jackie talking, he said that's really the one you didn't want to mess with out of all of us, because said he was a lot tougher than he let people know.
Well, that's why he's smiling all the time. So when he'd switch,
quiet one.
he'd switch.
Yeah.
That's funny that you brought Papa bringing up him telling you about me playing basketball, because he watched me a lot, and I was really blessed because my dad just worked so much that he didn't get to come watch as much. So when he would, it'd be kind of a big deal. But my dad's mom, my Grams, I'm sure you know her. She was you knew her when she was young, married to my Papa,
Sandy.
Yeah, and her birthday's April 1st too, just like Curtis. It's funny. My mom, my mom's mother, and then my Grams and my Papa were the ones that were at every game. Yeah. And one time I called Papa, and this is when they were living at that bigger house in Norman. The stuff I put him through makes me laugh because, like, it's not that I expected him to do what I asked. Mm-hmm. It's just he was my biggest supporter. So that's just who I called for those things. Like, I didn't know any better. So I didn't get to play a lot in school because probably smoking weed and having an attitude problem doesn't help. But my biggest thing was probably the attitude problem. I didn't learn until I was older that was like really an issue. Yeah. But I remember going and they're like, hey, you can invite someone on senior night to walk you out of the back and we'll have a picture of you and all that. Mm-hmm. So my mom's already there. And I was like, well, who else do I call? And I just called Papa and I was like, hey, do you think you could come and walk me out for my senior night? And he's like, yeah, when is it? And I was like, it's like right now. He was like,
it's like right now.
And you know him, he wants to be pressed.
Yeah, he wants to be prepared.
So he said, I'll be there in a minute, and gets off the phone. Not rude, but just stern. And then he shows up, shirt tucked in all nice, walks me out, watches a little bit of the game, and then had to leave because him and Tutu had dinner plans at the house at like 7 when people were coming. I think it was Bart and Karen, but they were already having dinner. So to mess up his plans is already irritating him. And he was like, he was like, I'll be there. So he actually walked me out, but it's just a funny moment because he would always be there, or when we'd play in Lawton, Jerry would come. But it always made me laugh that it was in our blood because on my mom's side, she played college ball. She played a lot of basketball. And then to hear all the stories about Papa and them, it's not a surprise because that's what I did, but it is interesting, the similarities, like even us with you saying like being rough and stuff. It's like, I thought I learned that, but I guess I knew that and didn't know it or something. Yeah. Because I thought I was like learning these things along the way, but it wasn't. My dad tells me stories about Papa playing basketball in like police leagues and he could still play and all that. But my dad's one of those people that's just good at everything, but he didn't play basketball. And I remember one time we were at his house in South OKC, and he was like, I bought you a basketball goal. And I was so happy, just so happy. But then he started hitting every shot. And I thought that was the one thing that I was going to get him on when I was like 12.
Yeah.
I was like 12 years old. I was like, yeah, but he doesn't play ball. Like, I play basketball. Like, because my dad would throw a football 5 houses down, it felt like, and then I'd catch it. And then I'd have to run all the way up to him to give it back. Or he'd kick a soccer ball and it'd go so high I'd almost not see it. Or we'd go to the batting cages and he'd hit everything. So basketball, I thought I was going to beat him. And then he was good at that too. Everything. I was like, it like upset me for a second. Like I was like, no, I thought this was the one thing. But something you said earlier, and when we were talking about like, was it hard growing up native? Since I grew up in this city, it's something I forget too, especially since I am mainly white on that side from my mom's side. Like when I would talk or have stories told to me by Papa or Harvey, and they would say this white boy, and then it would like stick out to me that they grew up different, or that you grew up different, and you don't think of it, especially us being so much further down the line. But I'd be talking to Harvey. We were sitting here, and he was sitting here. I was sitting there, and he was telling some story, and he's like, "Yeah, this white boy, da 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 da," and I'm like, "That's so funny," because like we just didn't grow up that way. We didn't grow up in as much separation between the two. Yeah. So it's so interesting to hear from the elders too, especially like Papa, when you don't expect him to use like that terminology, and he would, and he'd be like, "Huh." Were there so that ice time, like the ice route, is you're 12 and Papa's 16? That's ice route time, or?
Yeah, and sometimes it seems like he wasn't even 16, you know, because he would come get me, or I'd meet him or whatever, and you know, he would just take that. And he had a leather deal on his back, you know, for the ice, and it was just covered his back, just a piece of leather. And he'd just grab it like that. And I grabbed it like that. I couldn't budge it. I grabbed it like this, and I couldn't hardly pick it up. And he would just take it, and just up he would go. But I didn't go a lot with him, some to the bars and places, you know. But there was places where he would go to. We were talking about it at the Puas, Ma Hand, you know, and he'd have a piece of bread and then maybe put a piece of ham on it, or somebody, one of them would give him something at the different spots, you know. But he was just, well, you know, his personality was just, he never met a stranger, you know. Yeah. But if he didn't, you know, he'd let you know if he didn't like you.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you bring up the ice, because he said, people would pay him to be able to throw it over like a fence or just throw it high because it's so heavy, and he could just like launch it. And it's so like, he would always tell me it's a tendon strength. Like,
did he tell you about when in the same sense, but he would put those hooks and he'd grab them. They said, well, you can't hold that block of ice like that. He just kind of like, you know, you see in the Marines, how, you know, I was in the Army, but in the Marines, well, they'll make you hold those buckets of water and stuff. He could just put that hook on there.
And you just stare at him?
Just look at him. Because they said, you can't do it, little fella. And he just look at him. And pretty soon they go. You know, and he just, you know, you know, that was just him.
What do you think made you all so tough? Because you and all these stories, you all are just like little grown-ups.
Well, you know, we didn't have, you know, he had Aunt Clara. I had Mom. But I had, you know, on my mom's side, I had Grandpa and Nanny, you know, and we would go see, you know, Grandma Davis sometime. And not that I was tough, you know, but.
You say that, but.
It's just, that, you know, I was expected to work, and
well, you were the. What do you think the difference was with? To piggyback off Zach's question, because you were the oldest in your situation, where Jackie was the youngest. Do you think that played a role in?
Well, he was so responsible though, from 4 years old, maybe even younger. Jackie was just responsible. And you could see that to the very end, where Jerry, what the heck? Sonny for sure it didn't bother. Now, Buddy was serious, but, he wandered off and nothing bad. I love him to death, but, and I don't know the situation and why he left Donna. Don't know, don't care, but, he left. And that's just how he was. And he kind of left, but, he'd come back and stuff. But Jackie was always just serious. I mean.
Just always?
I never saw him when we could kid and go on about stuff, but, it was still.
Right.
And it's like in Uncle James, Jimmy's dad. And then other people have said us, and, Jackie lived in both worlds like Quanah did.
Mm.
You see all the stuff that he did on the Native American side, but what he also did in law enforcement and all the other. Mm-hmm. So he lived in both worlds and did it immensely, So that is a testament. And I would imagine Harvey would say the same thing about him.
Yeah, he said he spoke at their 40-year anniversary that we were doing over at their house. I'm so happy that every once in a while I'd hit record on my phone because, man. But Harvey said he's doing this long speech of like everyone's accomplishments. And then he's like, yeah, but Jackie was the one that paved the way for many Native Americans to get into law enforcement. And you don't think of those things. One, because he doesn't ever tell you he did anything. Mm-hmm. And then two, you just don't know the depths, especially us being disconnected, so young. But I think that's the thing that anybody wants. I had someone ask me one time, Zach, what's your legacy? Because I don't have children. And I don't necessarily plan on having children. Mm-hmm. And they said I said just off the cuff, well, I want my legacy to be how I treat the world. Like, I want people to know I did them right and things like that. That's been the best thing about talking to people about Papa when he was here and after is the amount of respect and, I guess, honor. Because, Harvey's this accomplished guy. You're this accomplished man that's done all these things. But the way you all talk about him is unique for some reason, And
it was special.
I wonder why.
And never tooted his horn at all.
Never what?
Never tooted his horn, never bragged about what he did. At Harvey, even at the deal, what was it, 2 years ago?
At FAM?
At the
American Museum?
Yeah, and they asked him, he said, Jackie Davis is the one that got me in law enforcement. That's the reason I got into this, and mentioned his name. And then, of course, when he goes, some idiot asked him that question. Well, why did you guys fight Vietnam? Because this is our country. This is Native Americans' country. I fought for our country. And when that guy said, oh, okay, I guess.
It is interesting, though. It's like, I don't know how to put it. No one's asking you to say the things you're saying about him, and no one's asking Harvey to be on this stage and mention him, but it's really important to mention people's name of where you come from. Mm-hmm. And I think, or who helped you along the way. I think that's important, because I look at you and I see this man that has all this history and all this success and all these ups and downs. But you make it a point to tell me how you felt about my grandpa, which is crazy. And then Harvey sitting here telling all these deep stories, but he wants you to know, but Jackie was my one. And it's really interesting to see, especially as an adult. When I'm a kid, I don't really know, but as an adult, I see these people, whether they're me and Josh's age or older, and they come around, and just the amount of admiration, it's different, I guess. But I guess that comes from, like you said, just how you treat people.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. I thought for the longest time Jackie was his brother until
I
this is the, here's
I
the
still
thing.
think that.
Yeah. I mean, y'all are, but, even though you're cousins, y'all are brothers, and so that's where I always thought.
You're the fifth one, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Because
the other brothers always call me, "You're our little brother." All four of them.
Well, they even brought George into the mix too. Your little
Yeah.
brother.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And he was not as, well, I don't know. My little brother was very, not because he's gone, but I don't think he could have walked in Jackie's.
not
He
as
was
serious.
boxes.
Oh, just serious?
Not as serious.
Oh, not as
Not as serious.
He was
But-
more so like how he described Gene, my grandpa, the fun loving.
Oh,
That's more George.
more loose.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because he could dress up like a Philadelphia lawyer one day, and the next day he'd be out riding horses. He had his own horses and stuff, and he made his own moccasins, and he was actor of the year his senior year, and he made all of his costumes. And when I was in the Army, I called home and I said, I want to see my little brother. And I said, have Cawthorne bring him, because I said, Cawthorne don't drink, and he's one of my closest friends that I went to school with. We lived together for a while. And I said, and he'll be able to take care of George. So what happens? George shows up, and this is Easy Rider had just came out, and this was hippies riding in Louisiana and had long hair and had their dope and
On horses?
No, this is on their
Oh,
motorcycle.
motorcycle
Yeah,
club. Oh, okay.
Peter Fonda and anyway, so this was happening in Louisiana in 69 and 70. So here comes my little brother. He's got a red, white, and blue headband on, got hair down to here, got his moccasins up to his knees that he made in the leather deal that he
The
made.
chaps.
Yeah, he had all
You
this.
still have some of that stuff.
Yeah.
You'll have to bring it over and show that.
Yeah. And here he comes. And my sergeant goes, "Who? Not another goddamn Indian." And because I had a white headband that I would wear, went off duty or whatever. And so I said, I can't go anywhere. I said, they're not going to let us leave the company area or anything. So y'all go have a good time. So Cawthorne comes back the next morning, and I said, "Where's my little brother?" And he said, "I don't know." I said, "What?" He said, "We were in Lake Charles, and he just disappeared." What? I said, "We got to go find him." What? I'm in the Army. I can't go anywhere. I'm in basic at AIT. And this was in 1970. And never found out. But he showed back up in Lawton weeks later.
Wow.
And so we bought a cabin out at the lake in 90-something.
97 when you got it.
97. And so I'm going into the bait shop to get a beer. And this guy's got this long Army deal. And he said, "You too good to speak to me?" And I looked around, and it's Danny Hargett. And I says, "Hey, what's going on?" Then he goes, "You know what? Your little brother, I saw him at Lake Charles in 1970. Looked across the barn, there he was." I said, "Where in the hell did y'all end up?" He said, "Oh, we went to Florida. Knew some people down there, and he decided he'd go with us."
Wow.
You just, off you go.
I wish I could be that carefree. I don't know.
Yeah.
And so I went to 5 Mardi Gras. And so the year he passed away, he said, "I want to go to Mardi Gras with you." I said, "Okay." I said, "Let me call John R. Wilson." He was a friend of mine, real good ball player. And he was an attorney down there. So he got us a 3-bedroom apartment, no furniture or anything. And here we are, my little brother picking up these girls coming in and going. And it was raining and stuff. And so he was bringing them over to our apartment. And the times we had. But that's just how he was. But, I mean, he could pick up, and there, I'm out there getting the balloons and different things, and he's had these girls on his shoulder. But he would just walk off. You know, and when Pancho that worked with us, he said, you know, when you go on the road, he said, you want to make sure George goes with you. Because I said, if you go with Ronnie, you sleep in a trailer in the sleeper and you eat bologna sandwiches. George goes with us, we go steak and stay at a hotel.
Just a little more freedom.
Yeah. So anyway, that's some of the things, but you know, he lived in that, you know, he would go out and lived and he'd camp out and he'd do this and that. He had his horses and then he'd want to dress up, you know, like a lawyer or something. And then he went to, of course, he went to OU for one semester and he called and said I had to come pick him up. So I went and got him. And I look around here and he had a big old mural that he had painted.
Oh.
And I never knew he could do stuff like that. In his room. Yeah. I mean, he had that native, you know, like Pop. Because he would go just head out, you know, and then he was a sports car driver. The only person that I think ever flipped MG end over end out at the mountains. It just went like that. And he just held on to his girlfriend like that. And I went to see him at the hospital. And I said, what'd you do? He said, oh, it was nothing. And I said, nothing. You two could have got killed. But when he passed away, why, he had a Alfa Romero and he won races with it, you know, different kind of stuff. He just was so different from me, you know, that he just didn't care.
It's interesting how that happens because even the brothers we're talking about, all so different.
Yeah.
I just think that has a lot to do with you were the oldest, he was the youngest.
And get a little more freedom.
Yeah, and you had to step up at 7 and kind of help Mimo take care of the rest of them.
But I was always there for him. Always. And, you know, you can edit this part of it, but I think when she got pregnant with George, she sent Pop to the doctor to get fixed quickly. And, you know, and Uncle Merle said he'd come back to work. Just said he went in, and then he was going to go drink anyway. Wasn't making him any difference. And so when something would happen, George would just go live with Nanny and Grampy. And they just took care of him. He was actually raised more by Nanny and Grampy then. It just seemed like that was, you know, I can't prove it, but it just seemed like, but there when he got, you know, his best friend was as the charisma as George was. They were the most popular two kids and all they could do was fight the girls off. They never played sports. They tried, they couldn't. I mean, it just wasn't in them. They just didn't. Sports were girls, you know, and we were down at the park playing football, and somebody come running down there and said, "There's been an accident." I said, really? So I took off. It was right by the house. Took off, and you know, we probably should have had guns around, but we didn't. And anyway, this family had guns, and they were playing with it. It went off and killed Chesley Paul, and George was right there. And it went through here, and they were sitting on the bed. It went through here and come out here. And that pretty much destroyed him. You know, he just never got over it. He tried. You know, we did a lot of things together. I mean, we lived together. We picked up girls together. We just did everything. But it just, you know, and then he started just bending over backwards with no control. Total pain and just bending over backwards. And so had to take him to Scott White. And that was, I think, he was, you know, now the family, I mean, George was buried next to Chesley Paul before we got our plots, but he went to church with them. He was in all the family pictures. You know, they did not blame him, but he just never got over it.
Yeah, so his best friend dies right by him.
Mhm.
Yeah. And, it just, but to see all that, but then, and we were living together, and he got our shotgun and took it back to the house we grew up in upstairs. I couldn't go up. I said, I will never go up there in that room again. And, I never thought I was sitting at the mug where Jackie and Uncle Merle and all of us drank beer. And George said, your little brother's at the window. He said goodbye. And I said, I'll see you at the house. He went by and saw JB. He told Jackie goodbye. Told Jerry goodbye. And none of us caught it. None of us caught it.
And how old were you and him at the time?
She was 20.
So you were,
July the 15th of 73.
he was 20, and then how old are you at that time?
I was 25. So I was 5 years. But yeah, that was.
You experienced a lot of loss.
Yeah, but I had a lot of love too. So, and you make the best of it,
I want to ask you a couple tough questions since we're on it, and then I've got some other stuff. But were you able to take care of so self-care is something that people talk about now, which you're probably like, self-care, that's for pussies. But how did you take care of yourself growing up at 7 and having to be a provider, and then losing your brother, you're only 25? How did you make sure to stay sane and not go crazy, and also take care of yourself and not be a druggie or alcoholic or all these things? How are you able to stay so centered? Do you know?
I just worked. I know sometimes he said, we're just working all the time. But, that was all I, just, and then, I was lucky that I came back from the Army on a Saturday and divorced my wife that Monday. And I was free from 70 to 76 before I met Patsy. And what I did was I worked every day, but my God, I played at night. And just the things I did. But, and that's what I did. That was the best thing that ever happened to me, was divorcing her and letting me have freedom for 6 years. Because I ran the road. I would come back from the house, and the place would be plumb full of girls, naked girls. George would be there, and I'd come in, and they'd be at the Easter pageant, and brought them all to the house.
The Easter pageant.
I know. That's the Easter pageant.
Yeah, and dear,
Lord.
I woke up and I looked, and I had ticks all over my arms that they had brought to my house from the Easter pageant. And I'm going, son of a gun. So we had a lady from Arkansas, and she said, them are just wood ticks. She says, I'll burn them off. And she just got a cigarette. I just had marks all over my arm.
Just burning them off, huh?
Yeah, she just popping them off. But that was just, you just never knew what you were going to get coming to the house. Here I am, tired as I could be, wanting to bed down here. The house is plumb full of naked women and guys and drunks and,
Party.
Yeah, just partying. And here we go. And then wake up and got ticks all over. But I think that, at 7, Uncle Jack, I would either catch a bus and go over there and stay the weekend with them, and JB, or she'd come over here, or, we just had the family there. And then, on my other side, Uncle Jack Bodkin, he took me to the Yankee ball games in Kansas City. And then I painted his houses and stuff. So I had people always there for me, help, but it was always work, You need to go do this, or you need to go do this. And, but, for a kid in junior high to get to go see the Yankees play and get Mickey Mantle's autographs and all the other, it was just,
So you had to numb it with work, but you were able to get some positivity from it too.
It seemed like, and this is hard to understand for you two, but in between 70 and 76, the people I ran with, a lot of Native Americans, but then there were some of the others, and we would go to Oklahoma City and go to these parties, and I'd have my van loaded down with whiskey, beer, wine, anything and everything. And we're pairing up, and they go, if you're not going to smoke some dope, I said, you ain't going to get no pussy in this house. Well, I load my shit up and leave. And I did. And people are going, he's giving this up for that? And I just, people go, he just don't do drugs. He just don't. But he drinks. But he doesn't do drugs, And one, out of respect for your grandpa. Because he'd have thrown me in jail.
Yeah, he definitely would have done that.
Because, he used to call me and he said, don't try to get a hold of me, because he said, I'm going undercover. Now, he didn't tell that to a lot of people.
But that was in like the 70s?
Yeah, and I said, okay, and that's when he would be out, California, out there in the, desert, waiting, sitting on a car, waiting for a plane to come in. Different things he would tell. He would be elaborate by any means.
No, very big.
Yeah.
But he let me know, yes,
He told my dad growing up in Midwest City, he said, hey, if you see me in public, don't come up to me.
Don't come up to me.
He said,
that's exactly right.
He's like, don't come up to me. And I'm like, how crazy.
That'd be crazy.
Yeah.
Like,
And, and people don't understand things like that when we go up and we look at Sandy. Ignorant, do not post our pictures. There's a reason for it. And she would, and I thought he was going to kill her one day. I said, out of respect for us, do not post anything with our faces. You don't know what we did, who we've been with, or any of this stuff.
Oh, Lord, have mercy.
But, that, and that's just part of what he was.
That was a funny time when I was like, oh, I ain't never seen Jackie that mad.
really?
Yeah, he had a few words to say to Sandy.
Yeah, you just don't do that. And I stored his drug car,
Was that what that was, an F?
Mm-hmm. That was
Which one, what car was it?
the T-Bird.
Oh, okay.
And we went and got it because Frankie Dunbar had it down there on Lee Boulevard. And so when they loaded on the wrecker to bring it down, half the town followed it down to the warehouse. And I know he was fixing it up because he's going to give it to what was he going to give it? Penny.
Mm-hmm.
I think he was going to give it to Penny. But anyway.
That's so funny though with the pictures, because I think it was 2 years ago. He was like, we were sitting there at Christmas and he was like, it's so funny because it may not be as heavy to other people, but to me it was so big. We're sitting there, me and O'Hare just chilling. And he's like, all right, I'll take some pictures. And we're like, oh shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we took some pictures. But it was like, for anyone else, like it wouldn't be that big of a deal. But to hear it was a big deal because I grew up not taking any pictures of him.
Yeah.
You just feel like, don't take a picture of me. There's some random stories though. I remember one time he said he was on a runway in California and the dude has like a shotgun in his face. And he's like, it sounds crazy to even repeat. He says, I'll kill you right now or whatever. Says whatever he says. And my papa looks up at him and he said, hey, well, if you got it to do, or if you got it to do, son, or something. And the dude's just like, doesn't know what to do and leaves it. And I asked Papa, I was like, how do you stay calm and say that? And he's like, well, what if I was freaking out? That could be the same ending.
True.
Yeah.
He's like,
Sure.
so you might as well just, if that's what you got to do it, or just get the gun out of my face.
Mhm.
I was just like, wow. Something else random he told me was, this was funny. So one time we were over there at his house and everyone left and I stuck around.
Mhm.
He's like, you still carry that 38 special? And I was like, sometimes. I was like, I got it today. And it wasn't the big one that he has. It's a snub nose. He's like, let me see it. So I went and grabbed it out of the car, and it's so funny. He grabs it, opens it, spins it, looks at it, and just goes straight into like memory mode, where muscle memory.
Yeah.
And he's like, and it's just so funny how he would teach me. He's like, all right, so I always wore, just out of nowhere, I always wore a holster on the front so that you could have it angled to your stomach. And then if you're at a table and something goes on, you just pull it out, shoot it, and then aim. And I was like, why? And he was like, well, because when you pull it out and you try to aim, that's so much time.
Yeah.
He said, but if you pull it out, shoot the floor, everyone closes their eyes. And then when they open their eyes, you're already on them. And I was like, so it's just me and him at 8 p.m. on a random night that you all probably left just a bit ago. And that's like the story he shared. And I was like, you don't learn those lessons from TV.
No.
Like that's from experience. He's like, yeah, I pull it out, shoot the floor, and then aim. And I'm like, what?
Or how many situations you had to do that?
Yeah, he's like, I wasn't messing around. I mean, crazy stories about that, and then something like that was really loving that he said, because when I hear the California stories and see the pictures, it's all gorgeous and mountains and all these things. I was like, well, why'd you want to come home so bad? And he was like, I missed my family and I missed my native culture. Like I missed the powwows and I missed our home. I was like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Because I feel like I would have went to California, never came back. And he's like, no, I missed it. I just missed my people.
Yeah.
Whether
I
it was
felt
going
the
to
same
Big
way.
Hawaii or something
Yeah.
like that.
Very nicely so. Yeah, that's the reason, they say he walked in both worlds and he could do it easily.
Yeah, there's a lot I'm never going to know. Even right now, talking with you, who's literally like the source, you're never going to be able to tell me how you feel, You're not going to be able to tell me like what his presence felt like to you because you can't describe it. Like all these moments you all had, I won't get. And that's okay because I get my own time.
Yeah.
But the admiration and like the honor is all I can think of because I don't know everyone's individual experience with someone, When he was passing, it helped a lot, I guess, seeing people come by. But you still don't feel it.
Yeah.
You still don't know. And I always joke that he had a special way of making you feel like the most special person. I was like, I felt like he liked me more than everybody. And I'm like, obviously he didn't. I know he loved me to death. And obviously he would talk to you about me and things. But I felt like number one. And it's like, how do you feel like number one? He's got daughters and a son and a wife. And Tutu's number one. But it's just funny. It's funny to get that feeling. Because you really...
He can make you feel
Yeah,
that
like
way.
I really felt that way.
Yeah.
And I think something else, which is funny for someone that's so professional, is I always felt like I could be myself. Like I could be his grandson that maybe wasn't in a suit.
Yeah.
I could wear my shorts and I could hang out and I could talk how I want to talk as long as I wasn't being rude. And it was interesting because at the time it felt normal, but looking back, I'm like, man, he gave you a lot of leniency that he didn't give other people. I had a lot of leniency that, other people wouldn't get and stuff. So it's interesting. But some questions about the Wichitas. Can you tell me anything cool, like a random story about the Wichita Mountains? Whether it's just driving out there or like what it means to you to be out there or just anything.
Yeah, well, back in the earlier years, and this is high school and college, we could go, especially high school, because they tried to, when we were in college, they started having meetings and voting to close down different places that we went to swim and partied and everything. And one of them was Osage, which I think I've told you before, but you go out to Osage and you pull up and they've got a dam and and then they've got a cliff that we dove off of. And then when you dove off there, then there was a cave underneath it there. And so we would come out and go by the dam and have maybe rafts or whatever, and we would put our beer in there, and somebody would take it out, and whoever dived off, then we had a flotation. And there would be the girls and the guys, and, we just go out there if you wasn't working Saturday and Sunday and just have a blast, And then normally the girls that wasn't drinking, well, then they would drive their pickup back or whatever you were in, and get us back. And Wayne's was open on Sundays then too.
What's Wayne's?
It's a drive-in where Jackie loved their hot dogs. And Jackie Beth loved their sissy burgers, which she likes that. And it was just a place you hung out.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll get back to something. But that was Osage. And then, of course, there's Quanah Parker Lake, and then they have the Quanah Parker Dam, which is really nice. And then Jed Johnson out there. We just had so many different little lakes, Mount Scott. Of course, people from California would think they're pebbles, but, to us, it was places that we went. And, you would go pick up a new girl that wasn't from Lawton, and you would say, I'm going to show you the city of Lawton. And you take her up to Mount Scott, and you look down, and there you see it way off over there in the dark. And they go, really? You drove me all the way up here? Well, that we want to do more than that up here. But and then we went to the Easter pageants more than once, and
it is kind of crazy that area is right there.
It is very crazy.
Because it just escapes you from the world every time you go over there. You're like, it's instantly different.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you brought up Jackie Beth. Like, we'll send some love to her with you saying her name. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. She was very special.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very special. And mentioned in the Wichitas, this is my first year of college, and I was going to summer school. And I had it wasn't a date, but one of the car hops from Wayne's decided that we would come pick her. She was going to go drinking with us afterwards. Well, anyway, we waited and waited till she got off, and when she got off, she disappeared. So we went off on out to the mountains, our normal deal. We'll drive out there. So we drove out there, and we had our beer and stuff. And I was coming past Mears store and turned left there. And we had helped move boulders to the Easter pageant back when we were in high school. But anyway, we're coming across, and there's some Indians coming this way, and I'm going this way. And I overcorrected, and they overcorrected. They went one way. I went into the trees. And then when I saw I was going to hit a tree, I overcorrected big time and run off a bridge. And when I run off the bridge, my car was sitting like this, and it was on fire. And I'd got thrown through the windshield, so I'm laying on the hood.
Oh.
And the good Lord, woke me up, and I had enough strength to come back through the windshield, and I crawled out the passenger door and got up on the road, and just, and I said, which one of you guys wrecked my car? And about that time, the Indians come back, and Neil, one of my close friends, he was in the back seat, and he was trapped, and he was hollering.
In the vehicle that you wrecked?
That was on fire. Mm-hmm. He was in the back seat. And I said, I'm on my way, Captain. I'm coming. I stood up, and I just passed. And so the Indians got him, and just, instead of bringing him up to where I'm at, they just throwed him in the creek. Just let him lay there in the water. And so I laid there for two and a half, almost 3 hours out on the road. And the one kid wrapped me up, and Neil was down there. And so when the ambulance got there and the highway patrol got there, Neil thought that he was dying because he was laying there like this and he had nothing but blood there. And then one of his eyelids was cut. And what he had was a cut across here, but he's laying like this. And so when he got up there, I said, "How do I look?" And he just went, because I had over 200 stitches just here, and this one right here should have killed me because of the jugular vein. But anyway, we had on penny loafers for whatever reason. He lost his left one. I lost my right one. And they said that it took wheelbarrows to get all the corpse bottles out of it. And I said, he's lying because we had cans.
He's lying.
But anyway, so that happened there right outside Mears, which...
That's a pretty way to enter, too.
Yeah.
Because you see that Saddle Mountain.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Or Saddle Rock or whatever.
Yeah, Saddle Mountain is what they call it.
It's pretty.
It's very pretty.
But it is nice. And that's what... I don't know if anybody wants to do that, but I told the committee, I said, there's so many things that we can do in Wichita. If you guys want to sit here and talk, play games, that's fine. If you want to go gamble, that's fine. But I can show you some of the things that your cousins and me have done out there, and like going to which I've talked about it and one day we'll do it. But when you go, instead of going, we'll go to Osage and just keep going past Osage and go Camp Doris and where the Forest Rangers and stuff. Well, that'll take you all around to where that cave is up there. And then on where Joshua was raised there, where the cabin was, it never had enough water. But if you went further down where, when
Jenny Creek?
Yeah. And you'd go back to the right past there. Well, there was another cave up there, but you had to get past a long way down that creek to go there. But there's so many different, things. And I know when we went, and you and your dad, all of us went, and then y'all separated and went back further. And Jackie and Baby Jack and I went.
You went to the powwow, right?
Yeah, we went to the powwow and then went and ate at the boot and stuff, But all that different stuff out there. Who wants to go see Geronimo's grave? I do. I mean, there's and the different things that the Native Americans leave out there on the monuments and stuff, And
we've been blessed to come from strong heritage, and then having people like you that can actually help us understand.
Yeah, but you've carried it. You've carried it a lot further than me.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, I mean, I believe, and it's like when we were, I was lucky enough to be present at two different things. One was, and Patsy was there, and Watchitaker was there, and they were doing the cedar, and they were blessing it, and I'm standing behind an elder lady in a wheelchair, and one of my kinfolk that I don't think Josh has ever met, his name is Jack Vance, and he does not look like he's got any, but that's okay. He's still kin, and he's there helping Woody do the cedar. And what happens? An eagle flies over during this ceremony. Mm-hmm. And if you believe, and it was just everybody that believes that was at that moment. Mm-hmm. It just grabbed you. Just grabs you like, this is, somebody, whether it's Quanah, Weeki, somebody, mm-hmm. The good Lord has blessed this ceremony. And you're going, and you have to believe when you see the eagle go over, if this is, and that happened. And then when you're going to Altus, you see the Quanah Parker monument sitting over there.
Oh, yeah, to the north side of the road. Mm-hmm. What is that, 62? Yeah,
and so I was lucky enough to be, Jackie was there, Napoo was there, Jimmy was there, Jimmy's mom was there.
And when you say Jimmy, you're talking about Jim Cox.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I got to piece it together because I don't know him as that. So,
Yeah.
okay.
And
So Jim, his wife, you, Patsy, and Papa and Tutu?
yeah. And, of course, Jimmy's mother was there because I think Uncle James had passed by then.
Okay.
And here we are, all these Native Americans out on the highway. And we're having a ceremony. And people are driving by slow like, what in the hell's going on here?
Mm-hmm.
But you go see these things. And then, mentioning and Uncle James, when Uncle James passed away, there was, of course, the boys were there. I don't think Buddy was, but I know, as I call Sonny, Tommy was there. And, of course, Jackie and Jerry, myself, Patsy, Apua, and a bunch of other people, of course, Jimmy and Anne Marie and Anne Marie's mom, grandmother was there. They were sitting in chairs. And, the tradition is, you pray, you do all this stuff, you sing songs and stuff, and then you cover the grave up. Well, the people working the cemetery said, okay, it's time. You guys got to get this ready. We got to get this covered up. Tommy goes. When that lady right there said it's time for us to leave, that's when we're going to leave. You can go back and sit in your truck if you want to, or we'll take you back to the truck. Turn around. They went, okay, I guess we'll just wander back on. And he said it nicely.
Stern.
But he let you know, this is a ceremony. That lady had just buried her husband, and we're the family here. And our tradition is, when she decides it's time to cover that up, quit singing and doing everything, that's when it's over. So.
I love that you brought that up because I remember one time I was we were in Oregon recently, well, a year ago now, with Penny, Tutu, everybody. And some of Blake, Penny's husband, her family was like, all right, we're going to take some pictures and da, da, da. And she was super sweet.
Yeah.
But she started kind of orchestrating how we need to take them. And Tutu looked at me and I said, hey, I think we're done. And she was like, no, we need 2 more. I was like, I think we're done. And then we were done.
Yeah.
But it was just Tutu didn't say nothing. She just grabbed my hand and looked at me like, you better stop this right now before I say something. And it's so it's an interesting way. I'm lucky to witness things like that, even watching Harvey's ceremony, watching those people sing and the guy leading the singing. So there was all the pallbearers and the guy leading the singing was a guy in a wheelchair and he's just moving himself through the grass. And they're walking behind him and singing. And something that was crazy is, Rachel had given me a rosemary and lavender bundle that she grew. And I was wearing it in my pocket to give to Harvey before we buried it. And at the funeral, before we went to the gravesite, an elder walked by and was like, good medicine. And just walked off. I was like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Because I'm the only one with it visible. Everyone else walked by and looked at it, but they don't know what it is or they're not aware.
Yeah.
But then when we get to the gravesite, people are walking by and putting their handfuls in before we actually bury them. And when I did my handful, I grabbed that bundle and threw it in there. And say this is the casket and this is the head. I threw it in over here and it went and just slid over and just not like magnet, but it didn't look like it was on accident either. And it just, and then stopped. And I felt really good. And then, we all did our burying and stuff. And it was funny. They were like, have you ever been to a native funeral? Because they don't all know me. Yeah. And I was like, yeah. And they're like, well, you know what time it is? And then everyone got in line and just started burying. But I appreciate you saying me carrying it because I'm just trying to live my best life that I can. I'm trying to be a good person. I'm trying to carry what I can. I'm learning what I can, whether it's from Bill and Troy at SIA, learning the terms I should use or learning the ways I should do things. Or I'm very grateful. And people like yourself are the reason I'm so grateful. And even even like when we were at Jackie Beth's service and you came outside and I asked you and Patsy, I said, do you all want some sage? And you said yes. And like, we're so happy. And like the trust and I guess acceptance and love that you all give me is very motivating for like the other things I do. So I'm super appreciative because I'm just carrying something that was carried before me. You know, I didn't just wake up and boom, like Papa was coming to my 5th grade and making me dress up in the native clothes, and I was so embarrassed and like nervous, but looking back, I'm like, well, I'm glad he did that. Or having these conversations with you, or anytime we're at a big family function or some type of gathering, having those little moments with you and Patsy, and like, it's just like a sense of comfort. So like, even doing this was a big deal for me. And if you all don't have anything, I'll wrap up, but I just wanted to say thank you because it means a lot to me, the way you love me, the way you talk to me, and the admiration you give me verbally and non-verbally. It means a lot. It really does.
And same back to us, you know, the way you treat us. You know, we're family.
Yeah.
We're brothers. I mean, it's not like, it's like, you know, like he brought up a lot earlier about, you know, they treated me like a brother. Well, what do y'all call me? Uncle. Instead of cousin. Because I am a brother.
That's how I call Jackie too.
Yeah.
Which was still crazy to me when you say that. But
Yeah.
obviously I call your dad uncle, so
Yeah,
it makes
yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
But it's different because that's your dad and that was my grandpa. So it's like it's an interesting
just
gap.
It is an interesting gap since we are so close in age, because we really are.
How old are you?
Because I'm 30. Oh, I just turned 40.
You did?
Yeah.
You look good, man.
Thank you. Yeah.
I like that you're growing your hair out too.
Thank you.
You look so
Got
much
to.
like your dad. It's hilarious with the longer hair.
Everyone thinks that I look like him. I'm like, yeah.
When you got out of the car, I was like, that's hilarious.
Everyone's like, keep it going. I was like, I'm going to keep it going. We'll see
Yeah,
what
I'm so
happens.
blessed that Rachel told me to grow my hair because
Yeah.
it's funny. No one ever asked if I was Native before.
now
And like, obviously with braids, they bring it up, but
yeah.
no one ever brought it up. Like I'd be working. No one ever said, are you Native?
Mm-hmm.
And then now they'll bring it up. And something that stood out to me is I was listening to a Comanche podcast and one of the elders was saying, you know, there's a lot of stuff that we've lost over time. And some of it's certain age groups' fault or, you know, not fault, but when natives were taught not to speak their language, well, now those parents aren't going to teach their kids because they're like, there's no use for it in this world. But one of the elders told her grandson, your braids is like your last, that's like your last thing that you can portray that you're native because you don't speak the language.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have as much going on. Like, so it felt good to hear that. And then people bring it up. It's like, okay, well, I guess I'll just keep it going because I look at these pictures of Kwana or pictures of my elders when they were younger and it's hair. Mm-hmm. So it's an interesting journey. It really is. I saw you looking at your notes. Did you have something you missed?
No, I was just looking. The only thing was, you know, about Frank Sobrano, which was one of Jackie's mentors, you know, back when. And that, I've told you that story, and that would have to be edited because I was stopped in State Farm for him about the apartment that you've seen that he had. And I looked over at this guy. Yadi looked familiar. And he said, John, you look familiar too. And I said, and then I finally recognized, well, it was a Mercandani, which his dad, Carmen, was the one that Jackie almost got a hold of with his ice tongs because he was cussing him.
Oh, yeah.
When he was just a kid,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and that's when it was across the street from the police station. And Frank Sobrano just happened to come out. And he was cussing Jackie. And he said, I don't think I'd do that, son. He looked at Carmen, he said, I don't ever want to see you degrade anybody, much less this kid here that's trying to make a living. Mm-hmm. But anyway, that was some of the things. And so here this guy is, you know, And so we got to talking, and he said, yeah, I mentioned his dad's name, and he said, yeah, we got out of the pizza business because they opened up Dante's, and we always went to Bianco's.
Yeah, I remember you saying that.
Yeah. And one last thing, that when these reunions started, it was Jackie and Napua and Aunt Clara and Patsy and Josh and Tommy. We had been pallbearers at some funerals, and we had just met one of our cousins, and she got killed in a motorcycle accident, when she's 18, not 17. And so that's how that started. And we had it at our house, and guess where we went and got pizzas from Bianco's and sat there at the house and ate them. And that's kind of how that started, us doing it. And then it kind of, didn't quite go the way we wanted to go, because Uncle Jack he thought we were making money at it. And we told everybody, this is on us. Just come, camp out. We're going to cook out. If you want to fry bread, Jackie had Dutch ovens, and stuff like the stuff that, people don't do. Tyler knows how to do that stuff, and you do. But that was our first reunion. Mm-hmm. And there was so many people that just came and camped out, And so Tommy took some of the kids to a powwow, so that left Jackie, Napua, Patsy, and myself. Uncle Jack was there, and he goes, "Okay, it's time to play dominoes." And we don't play dominoes. And I said, "Well, we don't play dominoes." And he had his camper there and stuff, and he just turned all the lights out on us. So, like Napua said, well, this is a good time to just sit here and drink our beer and our cocktails, and that's what we did. The next morning, and I think we got pictures. I'll ask Brian. The next morning, Aunt Clara had a hose up over there, and Jackie was sitting in a chair, and she was giving him a Comanche bath. Just sitting there, and everybody's just going, "Oh my, this is cool." And stuff. So that's the type, that's how, and we talk about it. And I can remember many a time that we'd go out to Craterville, and there Aunt Claire and Jackie would be camping out. Just the two of them, with other tribal peoples, Native Americans, but that's something those two did together.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I never heard that story.
Yeah. We'll have to sit down with Napua, because, and that's where I was invited by, of course, Jackie to come out, and it was a Little Ponies, and Jackie was standing next to Doc Tate. Just the different, because they were really, Doc Tate just loved, well, everybody, because he was living the Native American and still being, making a living, but he still never forgot that. And I think those people understood that also, So anyway, there's a lot of things that they did.
And that's why it's so nice that obviously we got to do this, but that we've been able to see each other so much more regularly. But I'm an outdoors guy. I'm a camper. I've got a lot of gifts from Papa that I use, and stuff that he gave my dad that my dad gave me, because he's like, well, you'll use it now. It'll just sit in my garage as like memorabilia, but you'll use it. So he gives me like pots and iron tools and things like that. But I'm going to think about that very often now. I didn't know that Papa and Clara would have their camping together. So that's going to mean a lot when I meditate on it, because I'm actually supposed to go camp this weekend for one night at a friend's house in Wellston, and then we're going to shoot. And then a couple weeks later, two friends of mine that are in the coffee scene, we're going to go hammock camp at Quanah Parker Lake. So it's right on time that you told me that.
Yeah.
But I appreciate you all. This was awesome. Thank you for wanting to do it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Appreciate. Yeah, you even thinking of having it with us,
Family.
Yeah, and that we are, and we're going to stay that way.
Well, I love you both.